Yo, what is going on, guys? It is yours truly, LastChanceFPS, or you guys can call me by my name, Chance. And guys, we're gonna be talking about skill-based matchmaking and how I made the shocking discovery of how not only how it is here to stay, but how it is going to completely ruin video games as a whole moving forward. So like the title says, we're going to be talking about, yes, skill-based matchmaking, or SBMM in short, whatever you guys want to call it. It is the dreaded algorithm that apparently no one likes, but it just continues to return in almost every type of video game nowadays. Now, I already have covered in a previous video a couple months ago on my channel about how I am not a fan of skill-based matchmaking in the slightest, and personally for me, it just ruins the fun factor and it doesn't make me want to play the game in general. But that is not what we're going to be talking about. I already beat the dead horse that is skill-based matchmaking. Instead, I'm going to be showing you guys new information in how I was able to piece together how it is not only a Call of Duty issue, which I originally thought it was, but how the virus that is skill-based matchmaking is now spreading across all different types of video games. Guys, it's not looking good, and I think it is now time for us to take action, and I'm going to be showing you guys all of that in today's video.
You're goddamn right.
If you guys go on to enjoy the rest of today's video, and of course, if you haven't already, drop a like on this video as well as comment down below your guys' thoughts. Subscribe to the channel and turn on those bell notifications to get notified every single time I upload a new video here on my channel. Follow my Twitch and all my social medias that are linked down in the description down below. And yeah, guys, with all that stuff being said, let's get on with the rest of today's video. So jumping right into it, guys, the first thing that I want to get out of the way is what is skill-based matchmaking, or SBMM, for any of you guys that might be new to this concept or just might not know entirely what it is. To my best understanding, skill-based matchmaking is an algorithm used in multiplayer video games that pair up players that have equal or at least closely related skill level to encourage fairness. Now, depending on what type of video game it is, what can define a skill level or the skill gap can vary, but for instance, let's just say Call of Duty. The main variables would be things like KD ratio, win-loss, accuracy, stuff like that. Now, at face value, skill-based matchmaking might seem like a neat concept because it will not allow good players to constantly beat up bad players and force bad players to maybe quit the game as a whole, which the company of that video game doesn't want to see, right? But without going in too much depth or me just going on a long tangent rant, I have made it pretty obvious that coming from myself, which I think I am a good player in most type of video games, my biggest problem with skill-based matchmaking is that I don't want to constantly play players that are equal to my skill level every single game. It just gets old.
Boring.
Plus, there is really no incentive to get better at a game that has skill-based matchmaking, because if you constantly go even against players equal to your skill level, you will never get the opportunity to do really well in a game. For instance, I'll use Call of Duty analogy again. With heavy skill-based matchmaking, almost every single game, I feel like I'm going like 30 and 25, and it just seems like I'm not getting better as a player. But if there wasn't skill-based matchmaking, I would get a handful of lobbies where the other players are clearly not as good as me, and I might pop off and go like 50 and 5 and drop a bunch of kill streaks and just have a really fun time showing off. And also, let's not kid ourselves. Whenever we play a video game for the first time, we're always a bad player at first, and we generally get pummeled. That's just how it works, almost like a food chain. But seeing that other good player do really well, it makes you and fuels you to do better, and for you to get to that point as well and have that much success in that game. So with all that being said, I hope you guys now understand why I don't like skill-based matchmaking. There is obviously so many other variables and problems that I have with it as a whole, but that is kind of my short summary of why skill-based matchmaking doesn't work and why it doesn't belong in most type of games, which I will be going into more depth in a minute.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
So like I stated earlier, the first discovery that I noticed is that I thought skill-based matchmaking was mostly a Call of Duty issue because it seemed like I noticed it the most coming from someone that is a part of the Call of Duty community. I mean, generally most of the time I'm playing Call of Duty, not like other types of games, but this is not the case. Apparently skill-based matchmaking is not just a Call of Duty thing. It is now in other types of video games, and this really caught me off guard. Skill-based matchmaking is apparently not only in this year's Call of Duty Modern Warfare, but it is also in Apex Legends as well as Fortnite. Now, Fortnite is in a little bit of a unique situation in the fact that this game has now been out for over 2 years, and the skill gap has obviously drastically changed over that time period. So I could understand to an extent that skill-based matchmaking should more or less be implemented in the sense that if a game's been out for so long and the skill gap has drastically changed as much as it has in Fortnite's case, but for games like Call of Duty or Apex Legends that are fairly new video games with not as large of a skill gap, I really don't believe that a game like this should have it at least in their normal multiplayer mode, but instead they should have a separate game mode, almost like a ranked game mode, where if you go into that, you know you're playing kids that are equal to your skill level, but in the normal multiplayer mode, you are obviously getting ranked up against kids that are just random. It is based off of your connection, and that's what I think video games should be as normal.
I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
Now, with that being said, a situation where I could actually see justification of skill-based matchmaking to not only be in the game, but for it to make it a better situation are video games that are oriented around competitive play. And I think games like both League of Legends as well as Rainbow Six Siege are perfect examples of this and are polar opposite to a game like Call of Duty is. In both League of Legends and Rainbow Six Siege, there is a lot more things to be aware of, and it makes you think more methodical or even tactically to an extent, and that is obviously going to result in a much larger skill gap. But in a game like Call of Duty, that's just not the case. I would say and make an argument that almost anyone could pick up a controller and do somewhat well, since the game is pretty straightforward. And I think an important thing to keep in mind as well is that when Call of Duty multiplayer really started to hit their ceiling, I would say back in like the late 2000s, everyone knew that when you played Call of Duty, it was a casual experience in the public matches. You weren't going into every single match knowing that, oh my god, I'm gonna get matched up against kids equal of my skill level. It is going to be very competitive. It is going to be very sweaty. It was not like this whatsoever. You would just get thrown in a game and you didn't know what you were gonna get. Maybe you had a really easy lobby and it allowed you to pub stomp, but the next game you might get paired up against kids that are really good as well, and it's gonna be a close tug-of-war battle. You just never knew what you were gonna get. There was variety. But in League of Legends and Rainbow Six Siege, that's not the case. Those games built their reputation around competitive play, and with a larger skill gap, that makes sense. But in Call of Duty, it doesn't. It just doesn't work. Now, if Call of Duty built up the reputation of being a competitive first-person shooter, I wouldn't complain. I would know what I was signing up for at the get-go. But now they're trying to like rewrite history and make people think that, oh, this game wasn't a casual experience. No, no, no. You're gonna sweat your ass off every single game. And if you don't like it, tough. And with that being said, that is where I draw the line with these new Call of Duty developers pushing this skill-based matchmaking algorithm.
How did they think that was okay to even put it in the game? I'm so sick of this fucking company. They're trash! Fix the game! It sucks! Blame the shit!
Now, this final topic I want to show you guys in this video is coming from an article published by Rant, and if you guys want to check it out for yourselves, I will of course have it linked down in the description down below. But it is titled "Respawn Entertainment Dev Reveals Why Skill-Based Matchmaking Will Be the New Norm for Multiplayer Games." Now, I will say I am a little bit late to this news because I believe this article was published back in late November of 2019, so I do apologize for being late to this topic. But oh my god, this is horrible news. This is like the last thing I want to hear coming from a developer. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire article, but basically it kind of summarizes how skill-based matchmaking is a really hot topic. A lot of people in the community are obviously against it, but for whatever reason, the developers are still defending this algorithm, and they're even trying to make the case that it helps the majority of players. This tweet was brought to my attention from this article, and it is coming from one of the developers of Apex Legends, or Respawn, whatever you want to call it, and it apparently started back on November of 2019. And this first guy chimed in and said, "Regarding the skill-based matchmaking in pubs, thank you. I think most would agree that this needs to be removed ASAP because it is ruining the game for many of us. Yes, Fury, you hit the nail on the head. We as the community have put out so much outrage about skill-based matchmaking, but for whatever reason, the developers turn a blind eye to it, and it just makes no sense to me." But this developer of Apex Legends actually responded. He said, "Skill-based matchmaking will become the norm for most multiplayer games, as there is indisputable evidence through data that it helps out something like 80 to 90% of the community with retention for most of those games, which hurts us 10%ers, I know. Still though, ours might need some tuning potentially." Okay, I'm gonna break down this tweet because obviously, yes, he is defending skill-based matchmaking, and I do have a problem with this, but I kind of understand where he's coming from, but I still mostly disagree with this statement. First of all, if he is making the claim that it is helping 80 to 90% or the large majority, I have one situation where I could totally disprove this. If these developers of video games are so confident that skill-based matchmaking is helping the majority, I challenge every single video game developer to put out a poll on their main multiplayer screen and encourage every single person that logs onto your game to vote in favor or not in favor of skill-based matchmaking as an algorithm to be in the matchmaking. I don't think this is an outlandish statement. I think this is very fair. And hey, if they're so confident, what's the big issue? I mean, it's not like everyone that took this poll would probably say that they are not in favor of skill-based matchmaking, right? I think if they actually did this and put polls on like their social media or their main menu of this game, the poll would be totally against skill-based matchmaking. I don't think it would be even close. I mean, if you look on like social media, everyone complains about it, including myself. I just find this statement really hard to believe, and I think he might be lying, but I really don't know at the same time. But I will agree with the end of his statement where it does hurt the top 10%, or I could even say like the top 5%, or just the really good players, because for me in Call of Duty, I consider myself a pretty good player. I'm not the best of the best, but I could definitely hold my own. And yes, this sucks to play up against constantly because I don't want to play sweaty tryhards like myself every single game. I want there again to be variety. That is my problem with this matchmaking. There's no variety. It's stale. It's boring. It is not fun. I mean, guys, it's getting ridiculous. Take skill-based matchmaking out of the game and everyone will be happy.
This has to be a joke. I cannot believe this is happening. I'm literally about to fucking kill myself, and I'm not kidding. You better fucking fix this shit right now.
So yeah, guys, that is everything to know about skill-based matchmaking. I am just blown away at this point. This is not looking good for the future of video games. I thought this would be, if anything, a short-term problem that we would hopefully get over, but it looks like these developers of these game companies have other things in mind. And I'm not even gonna joke in the slightest when I say this. If every single video game moving forward has strict skill-based matchmaking as a standard, I'm gonna reconsider playing video games, because that is not the reason I play video games in the first place. I play video games, and what got me addicted was the casual fun experience, and allows me to just have fun and play with my friends. We have lost sight of those glory days, and I fear that we will never relive those days again.
This is bullshit.
So here's my solution on how we could voice more outrage and just bring more awareness to this problem. I'm going to link down in the description down below to a tweet of mine that simply says hashtag remove skill-based matchmaking. If you guys want to go to that tweet and either retweet or like, that would be awesome. And if you guys just want to tweet it out yourself, I highly encourage it. Any notoriety that we bring to this situation is only going to help us. Unless we do something about it, nothing is going to change moving forward. And to be honest, I don't want to see that. We have to fight this, and I feel like if enough people get behind it, we could actually change for the better. So with all that stuff being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And of course, if you haven't already, drop a like on this video, as well as comment down below your guys' thoughts. Subscribe to the channel and turn on those bell notifications to get notified every single time I upload a new video here on my channel. Follow my Twitch and all my social medias that are linked down in the description down below. And until next time, I will catch you guys in the next video.